Hello and welcome back to the Kill a Bit of Time podcast. Today we're going to be talking about how I fell off the damn wagon, shit Wi-Fi, and a new feature I'm going to call Obsessed. And if we've got time, I'm going to talk about a little old fella called William Tell. So sit back, relax and enjoy my ramblings on today's episode. Well, here we are, episode 7, the real episode 7. I introduced last week's podcast as episode 7 and actually got it wrong, and then later went on ironically to say that I want to stop counting, and apparently I already had done because I got the number wrong. But anyway, I'm going to start using words instead of numbers from now on. I'll say episode fucking foxtrot or something like that. But anyway, so yeah, here we go, episode umbrella coming up now, and I'm going to start off with a little self-improvement section. My previous self-improvement sections have been about abstaining from alcohol, and I can't really do a section on abstaining from alcohol this week because I fell off the fucking wagon. The proverbial wagon. I've fallen off of it, and the reason is I'll go from the beginning. Right, me and my mum and my dad, we meet up for little camping trips. So me, my partner, my little girl, mum and dad meet up for these camping trips through summer, because it's nice just to meet up on a campsite rather than just going to each other's houses in summer. If you've got the weather, you may as well find somewhere new places to explore, you know. Anyway, my sister's been travelling for about a year and a half or so. So otherwise she would have been there as well. And went to this Devon campsite. Lovely. I'll talk about that in a bit. Turn up. Mum starts giving us the little tour of the campsite because they always get there first. We have work. I've got work on a Sunday. I don't finish till 2. Anyway, she starts showing me around. I was like, oh yeah, it's nice. Having a little poke about. Lovely. Looking around the field. And she walks us up to this gazebo. And there's this little person. This little sort of like person in a chair sat there. And I thought, oh, we better be quiet because we're being a bit loud. And I could see they're reading a book. And then I seen their little eyes peer over the book. And I was like, hang on a minute, I know those eyes. I was like, oh shit, that's my fucking sister. What was I back? I realised my sister was back. And first of all, I was shocked by that because I don't often get surprises like that. It takes you aback. You don't really remember the moments during that time when that surprise is happening. It's a little bit like I imagine what it's like to be in a car accident. You don't really know what's happened, but you just remember these like sort of details. And it was sort of twofold shock because first of all, I hadn't seen her for 1 year and a half. So I was like hugging her and stuff. And then second of all, I realised she hadn't met my daughter either. So then she was hugging her. And I was like, oh my God, this is mental. So it was a really nice little reunion. And anyway, one thing led to another. And, you know, I had a few little bevies. But I think I'm not going to beat myself up about it. I had about 50 days dry. And I enjoyed it. And there was great benefits to it. And I'll do it again. I'll hop right back on that wagon. Because it's not spurred me on to go, right, that's it. I'm going to drink every day now. Sort of, it's not done that because the after effects, I was hungover for like 3 days and it wasn't fun. But anyway, on the day, I had 3 Coronas, 2 Desperados, 4 cans of Thatcher's Gold, 2 small glasses of sparkling white wine, and an unknown number glugs of red wine from the bottle as like finishers at the end. You know what I mean? I don't really remember too many of them. I just know I had some. You know, when you wake up and you've got purple lips, you go, I know I did. So yeah, that campsite though was nice. It was a lovely little quaint small campsite, and it had like cooking facilities. It was quite bohemian kind of hippie type vibes. Had a few yurts along dotted around. Had a little wood station. They had an outside shower hooked up to the gas, so you could have a hot shower outside, which is quite cool. It was lovely. They had like the little compost toilets, or gongs as I know they're now called. And yeah, so we had a good old time. And on day 2, I had some of these things that my sister introduced me to called Aperol Spritz. I never had one of these Aperol Spritzes before. And they're bloody lovely. It's Aperol mixed with Cava. So they're pretty pokey. And they're bloody lovely as well. But yeah, so it was a special occasion. I was like, oi. If there's a time to have a few drinks, that's what it is, isn't it? I don't feel guilty about it. I don't feel ashamed. It was the right time. It was the right choice, and it doesn't take away from anything I've said previously about abstaining from alcohol. I still think that's a good thing to do. I'm not going to be doing it again. So how do I feel about falling off the wagon? Yeah, I feel okay about it. A lot more okay than I thought. I thought I'd beat myself up about it a bit more than I am doing. I'm just sort of taking it in my stride. There's no point in negging yourself out about something. You know what I mean? It's fine. And then how did I feel the days after? The day after, I was hungover. I was on the beach, just on this pebble beach, and I was feeling sick. And I was like, "Oh, this is rubbish. This is rubbish. I feel nauseous. I've got a headache. I feel dry, and yeah, I'm tired but too uncomfortable to sleep. It wasn't fun. And then I remember 3 days afterwards as well, I just felt retarded, as for lack of a better way of putting it. I don't know if that's not really the PC term anymore. You can't say that. But the thing is, the PC term keeps changing, doesn't it? Like back in the day, I'd say like what, in the 1950s, 1960s, retard doesn't mean what it does today. If you call someone a retard today, it's an insult. It's a derogatory name for someone with mental disabilities. But back in the 50s and 60s, it was just what you called it. That was what the word was. That was what it was for. That's what it was in their dictionary. And they were just being descriptive and accurate. But because people started using the word as a means of insulting neurotypical people, it became a derogatory word over time because people used it as an insult. And then, so people started saying special needs instead. So, okay, he's not a retard. He's got special needs. And you go, okay. And then that was the PC term. But then now you can't say that, because if you call someone special, that's also an insult. So they've gone, right, special is now an insult. So that is also derogatory. We're going to have to change the name again. And you go, right, change the name again. So I think now, I said to my mum the other day, I said, what is it now? Is it learning difficulties? It's a learning difficulty. And she said, no, you can't say that now. And I was like, well, why don't they just pick a word and stick with it? You can't just keep going, oh, that's you're not allowed to say that anymore. They're just changing the word, but with the same meaning, and they just keep plucking more and more words out. But at the end of the day, whatever word they choose, at some point or another, that word is going to be used as a means of insulting someone. You can use the word lampshade, and eventually someone's going to go, you fucking lampshade. You know what I mean? It doesn't matter what word you choose. It's the meaning that they're using as the derogatory slur, not the word. So anyway, I felt like that for the days afterwards. I felt like a lampshade. Okay, if that's the new political way of saying it. My brain, I couldn't articulate what I was trying to say. I'd conceptualize an idea in my brain. I'd be like, right, I'm going to communicate this. As soon as it reached my mouth, it didn't come out in the form that I wanted it to. And then I'd say something that not quite right. It's not the way that I meant it in my head. And I was like, people just must assume you mean what you say all the time, when really you might mean something else in your head. So I thought, how does that work for other people then? Because I listen to people and I assume they mean what they say. But there could be loads of situations where they meant something different and they just don't know how to say it right. They don't know how to articulate what they mean in their head. So really, we're probably, as a human race, we're probably only hitting the mark about 75% of the time. I reckon 25% is just getting it wrong. You know what I mean? And I think that's what I was doing a lot of the time over these 3 days, just getting what I said wrong. So I had to give up eventually. I was like, I'm just gonna go quiet because I can't really speak. And then I was getting like agitated and irritable because I couldn't like operate properly. I went in to do a stock take Wednesday morning. And I was switch on autopilot and I'm away. I'm just sitting back and enjoying the ride. My fingers are counting the stock. My eyes are looking at the stock. And I'm just there sort of navigating. I'm just telling my legs where to go. And then my eyes and my fingers are doing the rest for me. But on that day, my autopilot wasn't working. I had to do manual. I was like, oh, fuck. And it was like almost like I'd forgotten how to do it because I'd switched on autopilot for so long. It took me about twice as long to do this fucking stock take. And it was all because it was like, it wasn't a day of being hungover. I wasn't hungover anymore. It was like I had brain damage. Yeah, so that's how I felt the days after. So it's hardly an incentive to go and get pissed again, is it? That. And so I don't really want that. I want to feel sharp again. I want to be able to articulate again, which I feel like I'm getting back now. So what I'm going to do now is just use it for special occasions, I guess. I'm not going to make a point of going out and just for the sake of having a few pints. Do you want to meet up for some pints? Right, I'm going to then be like, what's the actual reason? Is the reason to drink? If that's the reason, the invite's there, I won't do it. That's not good enough. It's got to be a reason other than drinking. The drinking's just a side piece. You know what I mean? But it shouldn't be a mandatory side piece for whatever you do to meet up. It's a tricky one. But anyway, I'm back on the wagon. And when I told my sister I was going back on the wagon, she was like, why don't you look up what that means on your podcast? Because neither of us knew what it actually meant, where it comes from. Off the wagon, if you fell off the wagon and then get back on the wagon. When I thought, my original thought was it's just like a load of people on a wagon getting drunk. It was like a party wagon. And if you fall off the wagon, it's like you're not drinking anymore because you fell off the party wagon. You're like, oh shit, I fell off. And then when you're back on the wagon, you're drinking again. Well, no, that's the wrong way around though, isn't it? So yeah, I got it totally wrong. So I had a little look into it to find out what's actually going on there. And apparently what it is it leads back to the 18th, 19th and early 20th centuries when they used to have these horse-drawn water wagons. And I was like, oh, I think I remember seeing those in various books. And I remember reading about one in, I don't know whenever read the book or seen the film Holes, where this kid goes to like a prison in the middle of fucking nowhere and they bring along the water wagon and everyone goes up to get their water. I was like, that's a water wagon. So if you're on the wagon, it means that you're drinking water instead of drinking alcohol. So if you say, I'm on the wagon, it means you're abstaining from alcohol and you're drinking water instead. Water from the water wagon. And that's where it comes from. Well, they used to use these water wagons for all sorts. Sometimes it was, getting water to places that otherwise didn't really have it, like little communities where they didn't really have pipe work, military camps, like prisons or like construction areas, things where they didn't have water. They'd bring the water wagons. You'd have a drink. But they also used it quite a lot for controlling the dust. Obviously, they didn't have a lot of concrete roads back in those days, did they? They had a lot of dust kicking around in the 18th and 19th centuries. So much so that they needed a water wagon to go up and down the streets, hosing the streets down. And I thought, fuck, you wouldn't get away with that these days, would you? You know what I mean? Anyway, since when was dust such an issue? Even if it was a problem these days, would it be that much of an issue? You know what I mean? If you're like going, how's life going, mate? Yeah, pretty good. I've got a good job, good salary. I've got a family. I've got home. I've got my health. But the fucking dust, mate, the dust is just doing my head in. You know what I mean? Is it that much of an issue where you need to use the resources it would take to just hose down all the fucking streets? You know what I mean? Like, we get hosepipe ban. It always starts in Birmingham for some reason. But we get hosepipe bans now. We don't have dusty streets. You know what I mean? So it just wouldn't happen. Imagine that, a hosepipe ban. And then there's just fucking carts going down the streets, just hosing the fucking streets down. But yeah, it was all to do then with basically health and safety. The dust was causing havoc, apparently. Like the visibility, right? So it's causing accidents. It must have been so dusty. But I've seen dusty streets before in Nepal, and it does cause an issue. I got some sort of chest infection. I've spoken about it before. So I can see how it causes health problems, the dust. Everyone wore face coverings in those situations, apart from me. But it causes contamination. It can spread pathogens, apparently. And that's one way that it can cause respiratory problems. And these horse-drawn carts, they even have, some of them look like a big, wooden barrel on the back of a cart. And then the more modern ones, like big metal drums. And they go from place to place, hosing down the dust. And then I looked into it a bit more, and apparently you've got the different gradients of dust, right? So you got PM 2.5 to PM 10. That's the dodgy ones. PM means particulate matter. And then the 2.5 up to 10 is like micrometers or micrometers. Don't know how to pronounce it. So some poor bastard's job out there is measuring the width of dust. You know what I mean? What a boring job that would be. What do you do, mate? I'm a fireman. Oh, sound. What are you? I'm a chef. What do you do? I measure dust. I'm a dust measurer. So yeah, but apparently anything over PM10 won't reach your lungs. It's the PM 2.5 to PM 10 stuff that's dodgy. And I think I've encountered some of this shit before. Because when I was sweeping out my garage, right, when we first moved in, kicked up a load of dust. And then I started to get really wheezy to a point where my breaths were so shallow, I had to call 111, which is like, in England, it's a number if you call like the hospital, but if it's not an emergency. But it was verging on an emergency in my eyes. So I was like, if this carries on, I may die. I couldn't breathe. I was like such shallow, tiny little breaths, and I was like really laboured trying to get the air in. I was called the hospital. I could hardly speak on the phone. But I had a few weird stuff happen to me like that. Little wheezing episodes because of dust, right? I've had a few like skin rashes pop up every now and then. So I went to the doctors and I was like, what's going on? I've got dodgy stuff going on with my skin and my breathing. And they did a little like a allergy test on me. And it turns out I've got an allergy to dust mites. I've got a dust mite allergy. So I was like, so that's why. I was like, oh, right. I didn't even know you could be allergic to those, but all right. So I just don't think I could survive in a dusty country. You know what I mean? With the dust mite allergy. And as well as that, later on in life, I started getting this wheezy thing happen at night time. Just at night, I just start not being able to breathe. Went to the doctors and I was like, I think the dust mites are getting to me at night. And is there anything I can do for that? They're like, you might have night asthma. I was like, oh, you what? Night asthma? It's like, yes, asthma that happens at night. I was like, oh, right. Another fucking thing. So honestly, the older you get, I'm only in my mid-30s, but I've already got a couple of things popping up now. Night asthma, dust mite allergy. You know what I mean? I'm clocking them up now. I've got 2 things wrong with me already. But anyway, people would say that they're on a wagon, meaning they're drinking water instead of alcohol, on a water wagon. And that's where it all comes from. It came about during what was called the temperance movement towards the end of the 19th century, where there was lots of political campaigns at that time to sort of influence people to abstain from drinking because it was just causing loads of like social problems out in the streets, people fighting and stuff like that. You know what I mean? Leering around. And then they had prohibition in America between 1920 and 1933. That was the American prohibition, which didn't really work because all the Americans just started making moonshine and selling it in pubs anyway. In fact, it was probably good for the common man, prohibition, because they could just make alcohol, sell it tax-free. It's probably good. More people probably got drunk during prohibition times than they did when they were out of them. But anyway, they couldn't do that in the UK. They couldn't do it. It's too ingrained into the culture. People would riot. You know what I mean? They couldn't do that. So what they did was they used political campaigns. They closed pubs early, and they even started watering down the beers, especially during World War One, because they could sort of use World War One as an excuse of why they're closing the pubs early. But really, it was because they were trying to get people to stop drinking. So anyway, nowadays there's none of that in the UK. There's too much of a drinking culture. And the Irish, imagine if they went to Ireland and they were like, right, we're putting a prohibition law in, nobody's to drink. There would just be instant riots in the streets. The IRA would just come out of the woodwork and start hashing shit up. It wouldn't happen. I think there would be riots if they were even told to close the pubs early in Ireland. I think that would do it. But they do have some weird rules in various countries. In England and Ireland, you can pretty much just drink wherever you want because it's ingrained in the culture. We've always had beer. They used to drink ale because it was cleaner than water or some shit in England. Anyway, it's too ingrained. But in newer sort of colonial type countries like Australia, right? Because I know this because I was there for 2 years. They had some weird rules there where you couldn't drink in certain areas. I think it was the same in New Zealand. Like, I took a bottle of wine to a park once. I used to buy wine because it was cheaper than beer. Beer's extortion over there. When I was there, it was like $18 for 6 just little bottles of beer. God knows what it is now. It's probably more like 30. So we used to get wine because it was cheap. It was so cheap. You could get like 5 litres of wine for $10. It was, and they used to call them goon bags. You used to get the bags of wine. But anyway, on this occasion, I had a bottle of wine, more civilized than a goon bag. I was just drinking it in a park, playing guitar. And then these police came over, these 2 police. And they were like, oh, you can't drink that here. I have to take it off you. And I was thinking, there's no way I'm letting them take my fucking wine. And they're like, right, you'll have to, we'll give you a ban. Not a ban, sorry, a fine. We're going to give you a fine for drinking in public. Or you can just give us the bottle of wine and we'll let you off. And in that moment, my little head was thinking, I just felt like encroached upon. I felt like it was my right to be there, and have a bit of wine, playing guitar. That was my right. And I thought, why should I give these police people my wine? Just because they've threatened me with a fine. I just felt a bit rebellious in that moment. And so instead of handing my wine over, I just put it to my lips and drank as much as I physically could in the short space of time before they managed to snatch that fucking bottle off me. And then they slapped me with $100 fine. So that was the most expensive bottle of wine I've bought to date. But anyway, yeah, that's why it was a bit weird in Australia. And then the other reason that the booze rules in Australia are a bit weird is because some bottle shops, you have what's called bottle shops in Australia. You can't really get alcohol from supermarkets in Australia. It doesn't work like that. You get your food and your groceries from the supermarket. They've got a separate shop for alcohol, and they're called bottle shops. So anyway, in some of these bottle shops in Australia, they can refuse the sale of alcohol to Aboriginals, which is just totally racist, really, isn't it? And but the way they pass it off is they say it's to reduce alcohol-related harm to Aboriginal communities, so we don't sell to them. It's to protect them from themselves. It's like that, but really, it's just pure racism, isn't it? Why can't they come and what makes them any different to a white man walking into a shop? They want to buy a few bevs. They should be able to. And I remember the first time I encountered this, and I think it was somewhere in Queensland, and I was in a bottle shop getting something, and there was a sign on the door, and it said, "No sherry will be sold to Aboriginal residents." And I was like, that's weird. First of all, why the sherry? And I asked the shopkeeper, and they were like, oh, because it's really cheap, and it's the strongest really cheap thing you can get. So they just come in, they go mad for it. So we just put a ban. So they can come and buy other stuff, they just can't buy sherry. And I was like, oh, right. And I just thought that was fucking bizarre that they could just get away with that. Another country had a bit of I wasn't sure what the rules were on drinking in public, was in Nepal. Because when you're in another country, especially when it's very different to the one you're from, you encounter something called culture shock. And I got that immediately after stepping off the plane. And I was just ambushed by about 50 people trying to offer me their taxi services and trying to take my bags off me to help. But they said they wanted tips, and I was just like overwhelmed with it. And I was just got in someone's car, and it was like being in shock. But these 2 girls helped me get into this taxi they were in. I was like, oh, I'll go with them. They look like they know what they're doing. And went to my little hotel where I got scammed in the morning, actually, because I booked it online, and it said I said it was like 18 quid. And then when I was there, I went there. They said, sorry, you can pay in the morning. Came down in the morning. And they're like, hey, that's $50. And I was like, but it said 18 on the website. Tried to show them the website. They started getting angry at me, speaking in Nepalese or Indian or whatever they speak. And there's nothing you can do in that situation. You don't want to have beef on your first day in Nepal with a hotelier where you're staying. You know what I mean? So I was just like, I just gave them $50 because I felt like I was just out of my depth. But anyway, where was I? Oh yeah, I was in the streets. I fancied a beer. I was like, I don't want to get in trouble. I do not know what the rules are. And I looked around. I didn't see anyone else drinking. I thought, that's not a good sign, is it? And then I looked another direction, and then there was this female policewoman And to anyone who's never been to Nepal before, all the male police have just got a shirt on, a little cap, trousers. That's it. But the female police officers, they're like suited and booted, ready for fucking war. They've got like a helmet, they've got like the shin pads on, and they've got like a baseball bat, just a bat, just like they're ready to cave your head in at any given moment. And I think it's because they're more vulnerable. They're sort of like, they're ready. Anyway, that's the only one I could see. So I went up to her, hoping that she could understand a bit of. I should have learned some more Nepalese before I went there. I was being ignorant. But I sort of like said, I managed to communicate what I wanted to say, which was, can I drink a beer walking around? Use my fingers to do the walking thing. And she was like, you can, not the locals. And I thought, oh, why is that? And I thought, is it because I'm a tourist? It's different rules for me. If so, that didn't really sit well for me. It's like I was taking advantage of the fact that I'm white in a way. You know what I mean? It was a bit like that, but I wanted a beer. So I had a beer and I walked around with a beer. It was nice. But anyway, so yeah, back on the wagon. No beer for me now. All right? Little Nepalese riot police women or not. I'm back on the water wagon. And that ends my first feature of self-improvement. What I'm going to do to improve myself now is to try and abstain, just be back on that wagon and not let one special occasion blip influence my future habitual routines. Anyway, we're going to dawdle gently on to a new feature all about moaning. It's my opportunity to have a little moan, because I am English after all, and it, just like alcohol, it's in our culture to moan. There's nothing better than having a pint and a fucking good old moan to someone. So buckle up and get ready for the new feature, and the jingle goes a little something like this. Ho, 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 let's have a moan. Right, let's have this fucking moan then. So what I want to moan about today is a common one, I think you'll all agree, is signal, right? Phone signal and shit Wi-Fi, or just access to Wi-Fi. And you might think this is a pretty feeble moan, but it's not. It's not. Okay, it's 2025. We've had the internet for about 50 years or so. It's not good enough. It is not good enough. I need to make a call. That's a pretty basic human fucking function these days. You're expected to have a phone on you at all times. People get annoyed with you if you don't have your phone on you. Yet you can't make a fucking call or access the internet in a lot of places. Like a lot of places. Like chances are I won't have either in a lot of the time. Even if I'm in a little town. Right, called Dorchester. There's no fucking Wi-Fi there. I was like, what the hell is going on here? And the reason I'm annoyed about it is because I feel like the human race is trying to run before it can walk. It's like, it comes up with these ideas, these half-cooked ideas. It goes, wouldn't this be good? Look what we've got. We've got Wi-Fi and we can call people. And then they move on. Hang on a minute. Get it right first. Don't just give us this half-cocked fucking idea that works sometimes and doesn't work other times. Finish it. Finish the job. I can't stand it when people do half a job. It's called half job Harry's for a reason. This Wi-Fi and signal business is half finished because I can't get on the internet in probably 65% of the places I fucking go to. You know what I mean? Like, you can get AI now. You can get artificial intelligence to make art from just describing your dreams to it. But you can't make a call in Wareham Woods. You know what I mean? They need to get their priorities in order. Because if they're carrying like that, there's going to be too many holes in the foundation of our technological world. It's all going to crumble. They need to get the basics right. You know what I mean? It's like trying to get a degree before you finish your GCSEs. I don't know if they exist anymore. But another thing that bugs me about it is that people will just persist with these phone calls that aren't going anywhere. If I call someone and it's shit signal, I'll just put the phone down. Right? I can't be doing with it at all. But there's so many people where they're like, sorry, I can't hear you. Let me move to somewhere else. You don't know, by the way, you don't know who's responsible. You don't know who's got the shit Wi-Fi. Could be one of you, could be both of you. But either way, they're like, all right, I'll try and move somewhere else. Are you in the car? Are you in the car? No, sorry, can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? Yeah. Wait, what? Can you hear me? Which time did he say that? Which hear me are you saying yeah to? Because there's often a delay as well. So they're saying yeah to something that you asked them about 30 seconds ago. So that doesn't even work. And I hate that. It just goes on and on. I'm like, sometimes my partner does it. I'm like, put the phone down. You're not getting anywhere with that. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? Just doing that for ages. Does my head in. So that bugs me when people just persist with the phone call and they just spend. It's probably a phone call not about much in the first place, and they just insist on going through with it. You know what I mean? But there's a lot of people moaning about 5G towers. I've noticed. Now we're on the subject of like signal and stuff. Like you would have thought now, right? You'd have the best signal ever. Considering the amount of people are kicking up a fuss about 5G towers. No, don't build it. No, don't do it. It's bad for you and stuff. Do it. If it means we get a better signal, then fucking do it. Let them do it. But they don't. Oh, well, they don't. Well, they might be. But if they are, there's a lot of conspiracy about it. I've heard a lot of conspiracy about these 5G towers, these mysterious 5G towers that are popping up around the place. Some of the first ones I heard about was when the COVID was going on. And there's a load of people who thought that the COVID vaccination was just like a facade for implanting microchips under your skin. And then these microchips were controlled by the 5G towers, which is, I think that's a bit far-fetched for me. And I like a bit of conspiracy, but that's clearly bollocks. And then there was some other people who had a little bit more of a rational concern. And they were worried about the radiation from 5G towers causing damage to our DNA. And obviously it being a carcinogenic as well. But I looked into it, and apparently the 5G towers use something called non-ionizing radiation, which is the less harmful version of ionizing radiation. The difference to ionizing radiation, which is exposure can lead to burns, right? Radiation sickness, all sorts of different types of cancers and genetic damage. That's the ionizing radiation. But the stuff they use in the towers apparently is non-ionizing, right? How much truth there is in that, I don't know. I found that information on Google. They could be in on it. Nobody knows, but it's the best resource I've got to hand at the minute. If anyone's got any better ideas, send them my way. But looking at it, I think sometimes you just have to look at what is clearly true. Google can't just come up with pure bollocks, because people will know it's bollocks eventually. They have to have a degree of honesty about it, I think. Like, for example, it said that 2G towers were commercially launched in 1991. So that's fucking ages ago. It's like 35 years ago. That's when the first sort of like towers were put up for network, right? And that was started off operating network towers in Finland. That was in 1991. Okay, and it uses the same radiation, the non-ionizing radiation, that the 5G towers do today, the same ones that the 3G towers do. So how is 5G different to 2G and 3G and 4G? It's the same stuff, non-ionizing radiation. It's the same setup, it's just more advanced. It's a little bit like when you get a new computer, an upgrade computer. It's basically the same. It's just more advanced. It's just better. It's just quicker. So there's no like, oh, they've got a whole new different type of weird stuff going on these 5G towers that's new. It's the same thing that's being used since 1991. So if there was any massive health concerns about it, I think it would have come to light by now. So I don't think it's too much to worry about. But then again, you can never be sure. But these 5G towers, the reason they're faster is apparently because they use higher frequencies. And it's said that these higher frequencies used in 5G towers can alter insect behavior and health. So it can fuck with the insects. Obviously, the closer you are to the tower, the more likely it's going to have issues. It can mess around with their navigation, their reproduction, and just their overall health, the insects. So maybe there is, it must, if that's true, it must have some damaging effects for us humans as well. But maybe it's just so mild, it's not really kicking up that much of a fuss. Maybe you'd have to live in pretty close proximity of this non-ionizing radiation for it to actually have a tangible adverse effect on your health. But they did a study in 2023 which reviewed the exposure to wireless and non-ionizing radiation, and they found that it can lead to what's called oxidative stress and DNA damage in insects. So it has been proven that that type of radiation does cause damage, stress, DNA damage to insects. So, but then again, that was on Google as well, so it could just be making the whole thing up. We'll find out in 50 years' time, you know what I mean, when nobody cares. Nobody cares about conspiracies that happened 50 years ago because the whole world's moved on. But to be fair, when you like try and look at it to what's happening in life, you try and think, can I see any evidence for what I've just read? And with the old insect thing, I say there's definitely been a decline. There's definitely been a decline in insects as far as I can tell. Because I remember when I was a kid, my mum and dad were driving us down the motorway or whatever, or just down a normal road, there'd be a lot of insects hitting the windscreen. I remember clearly, splat, you get big splats of like flies and stuff hitting the windscreen all the time. Mum and dad had the wipers on, clearing the insect mess off. It was a right mess, especially if you lived in the country. But now that doesn't really ever happen. I can't remember the last time we were driving along and you get a big splat like you used to. So I think there's definitely been a decline just because of that fact. Not only that, but red ants. Does anyone remember the last time they've seen a red ant? Because I fucking don't. I asked someone at work, I was like, when's the last time you've seen a red ant? They're like, oh, not since I was a kid. And I was like, yeah, me too. And he's like, yeah, well, that's because we're not out looking for them. And I was like, I don't remember looking for him when I was a kid. I remember just someone pointing it out, going, there's a red ant there. Watch out. And you go, oh yeah. And you might go and have a look out of curiosity. But you wouldn't just go out looking for red ants. I remember there being ants' nests all over the place. Well, there's an ant's nest. I remember there little holes in there, little ants squirming around. You poke it with a stick, and they come out to investigate, find out what's going on. I remember putting my hand on black ants' nests and things like that, and just watch them crawl over my hand. I don't remember the last time I've seen a black ant's nest either, come to think about it. But I've definitely seen black ants because they come into my kitchen sometimes, and they annoy me. I'm like, ants. Ants are the most annoying pest you can get if you work in a kitchen, because you don't know how they're getting in. You try and follow their little trail. Like, where are you going? I'm going to follow one and see if it leads me to how they're getting in. They don't. It's like they know they're being watched. They sort of just go backwards and forwards. They don't lead you anywhere. They come for the sugar. Anything sweet. My kitchen's pretty clean. Like, I keep it clean, yet they still want to come in. And it's impossible to find out where they come from. So ants are annoying. But that's how I know the black ones exist, because they annoy me. Red ants? Never been annoyed by one of them. Not in 15, 20 years I haven't. I don't think they're here anymore. Things are cover up. I think they're covering up that red ants are extinct. Just like I heard this story. I don't believe it, but someone told me that moles are extinct, and someone's going around. They're going around sort of like making fake molehills to make everyone believe that there's still moles knocking about, but actually there's not. But I think that was bollocks. But I wouldn't be surprised me if the red ants had gone, because I don't remember seeing any. But anyway, back to the 5G towers. I don't know. I've seen one. When I was on the Isle of Wight, and it had a hum about it. But that wasn't the weird thing. We found it, and I didn't know it was a 5G tower straight away because it was disguised as a tree. I was on the back end of a bit of a drinking sesh, right? We decided to go for a walk, and we come across this tree. And what drew our attention to this tree was that it was enclosed in a cage. And I was like, why is that tree in a cage? We looked at it closely, and then looked up at it, at the branches and stuff. And there was like little satellite dishes sticking out of it and stuff. And I was like, oh shit, this isn't a tree at all. It's a fake fucking tree. It's a fake tree in a cage. What's going on there? And I never got to the bottom of it until later on. I spoke about it to someone, and they were like, oh yeah, it's probably a 5G tower. And I was like, why have they dressed it up? It's like they know there's something dodgy with it, and they're trying to hide it. Why are they trying to hide 5G towers, disguising them as trees? And well, I looked into it, and apparently, this is what they say, it's to improve their visual appeal, and just basically to stop the locals kicking off, because the locals don't want to see little 5G towers popping out there like lovely little woodland. But apparently they're everywhere. They're called monopines. That's why the names are monopines. They're usually shaped like a pine tree. Or in like other areas of the world, they're called monopalms, because you get fake palm trees as well, dressed up like that. Apparently they even dress up some 5G towers, a giant cactus, which is just bizarre. I didn't know you could get cactuses that big. But anyway, how much of what we think we see is actually correct? You know what I mean? When you're looking around the countryside and you just assume what you're looking at is real, don't you? But how much of what we see is fake? Just like that 5G tower was fake. You know what I mean? How much more is there? It's only because I got up close to it that I knew it was fake. What else is fake that they're disguising? Because they don't sing about it. They don't tell us on TV. You have to go and find one to see it for yourself, to know what it's like. And I had another thing that happened to me recently in Lidl, which made me question what I see and what I assume to be what I think it is. In Lidl, right? All the little prices, all the price tags on all the shelves. I thought they were paper, and they just slot in the little plastic sleeve. I went along one, and it was black, and it was flickering. I was like, "What the fuck? That's flickering." Turns out, all those little price signs, they're electronic, they're digital, and they're made to look like paper. So there again, I've been done again. Reality as I knew it isn't what it was. So there's another one. Margarine, I've spoken it in a previous podcast. It's actually grey. They made it look yellow. How many more things aren't what it's meant to be like in real life? You know what I mean? I found out that they even dye, they dye like lakes and stuff like that. There's a blue lagoon, right, in Buxton, and they dyed it black to stop people swimming in it, right? Because they said it's toxic. You shouldn't swim in it. It's got the same pH as bleach apparently, but it looks really nice. It looked really nice. It was like idyllic blue because of all the minerals. You tend to get really blue lakes on old quarries and things like that because of the minerals in the water, and it makes it look lovely blue. But this particular lake from an old quarry turned toxic apparently, so they filled it full of black dye to put people off swimming in it. So it's toxic. Well, it's fucking toxic now, isn't it? You know what I mean? But they do it all the time, apparently, putting dye in water. They used to put it in to control these things called algae blooms. My sister first told me about algae blooms. And they pop up a lot in rivers because of the overflow from like sewage and things like that and farm waste going into the water. It puts too many nutrients in the water. And it creates these sort of algae blooms. It's just big, horrible, slimy slabs of fucking algae floating around in the rivers, and it's a problem because they suck up all the oxygen out of the rivers, and they produce toxins as well. So they have a negative effect on the fish populations in the rivers. So what they've done in some places is they've chucked this dye in the rivers and the lakes to bring down the algae plume population as well. So what they do is they get this dye, and their favourite flavour of this dye is called Diofix Pond Blue, and they chuck it in the rivers and the lakes and things like that. And apparently it gets the algae fucking bloom populations down. But it seems like they're not trying to solve the initial problem. Stop chucking shit in the rivers. Don't try and solve the problem of algae blooms, which is a byproduct of the real problem, which is you fucking chucking waste and farm waste and sewage into the rivers. That's the real problem. It's not the algae blooms. They're trying to stop the algae blooms. Stop the real problem. You know what I mean? Wankers. Anyway, I don't think I've got enough time to do Obsessed, the new feature today. So I'm going to chuck in a little bonus thing, and it's someone with a name. It's not that much of a strange name, so I can't even use the jingle that would have a strange name because they haven't got a strange name. But they've got a name, and that'll do. So here we go. Someone with a name. And the person with a name today is a little fella called William Tell. And basically, part of my new routine is trying to learn as much as possible to try and better myself. You know what I mean? Because if you learn something at the end of the day, it's not a wasted day then, is it? But anyway, right, so what spurred this one on was I was in Poundland, right, waiting for my partner to pay for the bits we just picked up. And one of these bits was a plastic bow and arrow that we wrapped up and used as a mystery prize at work. And then some fella who works there was like, "Oh, who do you think you are? William Tell?" And I was like, William Tell. I was like, I know that name. And I felt slightly embarrassed to say. I was like, who's that? He's like, do you not know? And I was like, well, I've heard of the name, but I just can't think what he is. And then he went on to tell me a little bit about him. And I was like, oh yeah, that story rings a bell. And so anyway, who he was it was this Swiss fella between the late 14th and early 15th centuries, apparently, right? He was a huntsman and he was a mountaineer in Switzerland, okay? William Tell. And he was captured by some Austrian duke called Gessler, this duke, right? He was the bad guy in this situation. And what he did was he caught him and he said, right, I'm going to execute you. I think it's because he was he was Swiss and Gressler was Belgium. I think Belgium were taking over Switzerland or something like that. Anyway, he captured this William Tell fella. He said, right, I'm going to kill you unless you shoot this apple off your son's head with this bolt gun. What are they called? Bolt gun? Crossbow. That's it. With a crossbow. So anyway, he's like, I don't really have much of a choice in this situation, do I? So what he did was he was a pretty good shot, and that's why this duke got him to do it, because he knew he had a reputation for being a good shot. And he was like, well, let's see how good you really are. Put an apple on his son's head, try and shoot it off. And William Tell, as legend goes, he picked up 2 bolts, right, just in case he missed and shot his son in the face. He was going to use the second bolt to kill Gressler. And when Gressler seen he had another bolt, he figured out why, and he's like, right, you fucker. You think you're smart, dear? And he threw him in a dungeon. Right? And anyway, apparently he escaped from this dungeon. He escaped and then went on to kill Gressler. And it sparked off the rebellion in Switzerland that overthrew Belgian rule. So he was a bit of like of a symbol for Switzerland, of like, you know, for their like famous sort of like victorious figure, the one that sort of like stood for righteousness and rebellion and standing up for what's right. And they use him as a figure like that. But there's loads of different versions of that story. And when something happens that long ago, it's sort of marked as folklore, isn't it? Sort of folklore. So nobody really knows if it's 100% true or not, because it's only what's been written down in scripture and books and things like that, and it's just been passed down the line. It could have just been a story. You never know. But you would be pissed off, wouldn't you, if you were a legend, and then 500 years later, people just dismissed it as bollocks due to lack of evidence, wouldn't you? But I think there's a lot of things like that happen. But anyway, that's going to be my new month's resolution, I think. If approached by someone who's a bit mental, because I think this bloke who told me was a bit mental, then I'm going to listen to them and try and learn something, because mental people have a lot to learn from, I think. So I'm going to keep an eye out for them. I'm going to try and accept their information next time they start chatting to me. It's rare that nutters come up to you these days and speak to you, isn't it? If they do, they're usually old. It's not really socially acceptable, is it? To walk up to someone and just start talking to them. You know what I mean? It's odd, isn't it? The only things you can talk to people about that's accepted in society, you can just walk up and talk to someone, is asking for directions, asking what their time is, or if you've lost your child or looking for a child. I think that's acceptable to say. Have you seen my little boy? He's wearing a yellow coat. I think that's okay as well. But if I started walking up to people randomly in the street and saying, have you heard about William Tell? They're going to think you're mental, aren't they? So, but some people do it. And when they do it, if they do it to me, I'm going to listen to them. I'm going to ask them questions. I'm going to try and coax more weird information out of them. But nowadays, everyone just walks around, don't they? Just trying not to make eye contact. It's sort of like social anxiety all the time. When you're walking around shops and stuff, you try not to make eye contact with people. You like to look at their faces, You're drawn to looking at people's faces because it's a natural thing to do. But if they're likely to look at you, you look away. Nobody wants to make eye contact anymore. And if they do, if you're looking at someone's face and their eyes pop up and you meet eyes, then you both do the same thing. You do the bottom lip thing. You both purse your bottom lip. You go, and you just tense your bottom lip. You know what I mean? It's like a half smile. It's just a little facial movement you can do to say, we've both seen each other looking at each other. I'm accepting your presence as a human and you're accepting mine. It's a little lip twitch to go, I'm not going to attack you. It's a little lip twitch to say, all right. You know what I mean? But it's not a full smile. It's not, if you smiled at someone, it would be weird. You only smile at people that you know or recognise. If you met eyes with someone in Tesco's and you started smiling at them, they'd think you're mental. So you don't. You just do the little lip thing, the bottom lip up, just to say, I'm not mental, but I acknowledge the fact that we've awkwardly met eyes. So I'm going to do the lip thing at you. All right? And we both do that. But anyway, that's all I've got time for today. So I'm going to leave you with a little conducive summary of a conversation between two people about red ants and molehills. Enjoy.
How long's it been since you have seen the red ants creep beneath your feet?
I must admit I can't recall, though I rarely search down on the floor.
Well, ask your neighbour, ask your friends. They too will not remember when the last time that it was they saw the red ants marching through their door.
The fire ants extinguished flame, the monopines must be to blame. The lefties are all left despising, frequencies non-ionizing.
The moles are too in stark retreat, the tunnels dwindle neath your feet.
Many man-made mounds they're making, it's not just news that they are faking.
Paranoid conspiracies, can you decide what to believe?
Depends on what I read in life, I first must find some decent Wi-Fi.
Killed a bit of time, didn't it?
Know what I mean?
See you later.